It's my pleasure to introduce to you the President of the Illinois Senate and my state senator, Senator John Cullerton.
Thank you very much, Tom. I realize that this is a dinner and you're starting to end your salad, and I'm keeping you from that, so you should please go ahead and eat the salad, and hopefully I won't break your whole dinner by talking about what I need to talk about, because there's some positive things and there's some things which are pretty tough. So I do want to thank the Taxpayers Federation for inviting me. I enjoy doing this because I can communicate and learn from you. I also enjoy doing it because it's actually good practice for me to go through putting these slides together, talking about pensions, talking about the budget. It actually helps us with our own caucus and with our own staff. So last week I spoke to the Civic Federation. Very similar goal here to try to talk about the state budget and some of the ways that we can deal with some of our problems. But before we do that, we have to start off with some of our successes and some of the things that we have done in spite of our economic downturn. I want to talk about the current budget and also, I think, the path we're going to go on for this year. We really should point out that things are not quite as bad as some might say. Site Selection magazine recently ranked Illinois 8th in terms of new and expanded corporate facilities. Chicago region ranked 1st. I have to say something about the fact that Governor Scott Walker is in town today, touting his strong fiscal policies. I love it when he comes to the attention of people in Illinois and talks about how great his state is, because I think he makes us look quite good, quite frankly. He said no thank you to the high-speed rail funds up in Wisconsin, so we got that money. I hope that when he's here today, he talks about our temporary tax increase today, because then maybe people will look at it. Despite the fact that we have a temporary tax increase, that our tax rates are still lower than Wisconsin's. And I'm glad he spent the day trying to talk about the difference between Wisconsin and Illinois, because there is a difference. In Illinois, we actually talk to our unions and try to negotiate bills with them. In fact, I was just in a meeting downstairs with the governor and the speaker, they might still be there, talking about some pension problems. So we really have, I think, done a good job in Illinois, especially compared to Wisconsin. We recently, a few weeks ago, Citigroup, in partnership with The Economist, said that Chicago was ranked 9th most competitive city of the top 120 global cities. Keep in mind some of the other things that we've done to improve business in the last few years. The McCormick Place bill that we passed dealt with dealing with work rules. We talked to the unions. They didn't want to do it at first. A couple of them actually sued us, but we eventually prevailed, and we passed a bill that keeps our convention centers from leaving to go to other parts of the nation. We did a workers' comp bill. Some people would wish it was more, but it certainly was very complicated. We passed that last year. That involved a lot of powerful people in this state, hospitals, doctors, unions, trial lawyers. It wasn't easy to get a bill passed, but we did it. And it will lower our premiums for our businesses. And right now, this year, we're taking on a real tough job of cutting down our Medicaid costs. We started doing that last year with a reform bill that Senator Staines and Ryder worked on. We are really a national model in our educational accountability law that we passed, primarily with the help of Senator Kimberly Lightfoot. And of course, we're in the 3rd year of our capital bill. We hadn't passed a capital bill in 10 years. Senator Radonio and I both came on board at the same time, and we passed that bill within 10 weeks after going 10 years without it. And that's a bill that's led to the improvements of our almost 6,000 miles of highways and over 800 bridges. And so we've done that. And I think we've done that in a way to improve business. You may have heard people seem to claim that businesses are leaving Illinois left and right. The fact is that we also have brought businesses to Illinois. If you look at Navistar, that was a bill that we passed to entice them to come move there from Indiana. New $110 million headquarters out in Lisle. There's expansions in the Melrose Park facility of another $15 million. And Navistar has invested so that we get to retain 1,400 jobs and create a similar amount in the next few years. We also, as you know, passed the bill last year dealing with making sure that the CME, the Board of Trade in Chicago, was to stay here. We also, as well as Sears, we also passed bills dealing with Chrysler, Ford, and Mitsubishi, and they have been increasing their production in our state. Today, I understand the governor has made an announcement that Lafarge North America is investing $10 million to relocate its U.S. headquarters from Virginia to Illinois. This is I actually just heard about this, a large cement, aggregate, and concrete manufacturer, one of the largest in the world, and that's coming to Illinois. So that's another example of how we actually are doing some things right. We are first in the Midwest as a destination for foreign investment. We've attracted over 1,500 foreign firms with 6,400 locations, with employed 223,000 Illinois residents. Okay, now the bad news is our budget. Let's look at the budget that we're operating on right now. So this is the fiscal year 12 budget. That's the one we're operating on right now. Just look at the chart. Medicaid, 25% of our budget. Medicaid, human services, those are the third-party providers that we contract with to provide services, like think about Misericordia, Catholic Charities, that sort of thing. 15% of our budget. If you look at education, E12 is 20% plus higher ed. That together over 25%. Look up in the top. It says government services, 3.4%. That's all of government. That's how small it is. When you add in corrections, the whole total for the government, operation of government, is only about 8%. But a real problem has been pensions. You see, the pensions are 12%, but the debt service is also pensions. That's paying off a couple of years where we had to borrow to fill our pension obligation. Statutory transfers out, that is revenue sharing with local governments, and mass transit for grants to the RTA and out-of-state mass transit. So that's where we spend the money. This year, we're in the process of trying to figure out what should be in our budget, and it's not going to be easy. It's actually going to be tougher than last year. We have started in a very cooperative way. We agreed to first adopt a revenue estimate so we know just how much money it is that we can spend, which is $33,719 million. This is the general revenue fund that we're talking about. So we have to make up for some major underfunding of our entitlement programs from the previous year, and we have a backlog of unpaid bills. So these are the pressures. The next slide shows you what we've been encountering. Big pension costs comes because of two reasons. We passed a bill in 1995 that obligated us to increase paying money into our pension funds. And then in 2008, the market collapse really hurt that pension system. We also, the second big problem is Medicaid. More people are qualifying for these entitlement programs. And I'll show you a chart on that a little bit later. So, the statutory pension contributions, you can see what we've done since 1996. So back in 94, we passed this law. We talked about the 5 systems being on funding schedule, meant to get to 90% funded by 2045. And so there was a concern that there was no plan to ensure that we were going to get there, but there was also concern that we wouldn't have enough money to pay for our state budget. So the ramp, if you will, was really low for the first few years. And unfortunately, it was really legislated to be too low. And that caused a real problem. It was supposed to ramp up the payments, at which point was this going to become stable and predictable at a set level of state payroll, but it didn't deliver. Okay? one of the things I wanted to show, if you can show the next slide, it's really interesting. These are the three big systems. The TRS is the teachers, state SSERS is the state employees, and SURS is the state university retirement system. If you look at the far end, that shows you how many active folks there are. The total number of active people that are that are eligible for these pension systems is 280,000. 185,000 of them have been there under 15 years. So I just want to highlight that 2/3 of the folks that are currently working are younger. I point this out because when we talk about pension reform, it should be easier to make tough pension decisions when you're really talking about the younger people who would benefit the most. A lot of these folks are young. They don't even think there's going to be Social Security. They don't think about their pensions. They may not even think this pension system is going to be there when they retire. So these are the people we're trying to really help by talking about pension reform. The next slide talks about what we've had to do in terms of funding these pensions. Another way of looking at it, back in 06, pension costs were less than 3% of our budget. This year, over 15%. Okay, this slide shows you our expenditures as a percentage of the total GRF. The fiscal year 10 and 11, as I pointed out, instead of skipping payments, which is totally irresponsible. That's what they did in New Jersey. You know where New Jersey is, the highest tax state in the nation. Governor Christie skipped the pension payments. We didn't do that. We did borrow at low interest rates to fund those systems, and that's generating money. It was a smart thing to do. But you'll see there's a big increase in 12 and 13. And this is what's really putting a lot of pressures on our budget. Okay, this is really interesting. If you read the Tribune editorial board, you'd think that the reason why we have pension crisis is because we've been giving out too many benefits. The benefits are too generous, okay? That's not the case. The reason why the growth in unfunded pension liability is attributable to these different factors. Employer contribution shortfall, that's the problem. Employer contribution shortfall. Benefit increase is only about 11% of the total. Investment returns, this is from 83 to 2010, 12%. So 60%, 61% of the problem is underfunding and the stock market, okay? When you go to the next slide, this shows you what happened between 08 and 10. The investment returns were 53%. Employer contributions was 26%. Put those two together, you see that it's like 80% of the problem was underfunding and the stock market. That's very important. Not that we don't want to reform the pension system and make sure people are not eligible for pensions shouldn't get it. That's not where the money is. That's where the big headlines are on these stories. But the problem has been chronic underfunding for all these years. Now, I think it's time to talk about Medicaid. These are the people who are enrolled in Medicaid. You go back to 02, 1.5 million people. It's estimated fiscal year 13 doubles. And it's pretty steady. It's an entitlement program. There's, if there's standards, we put in the law. If you fit in those standards, you're entitled to it. So you can see that's what we're up against. There's been a tremendous growth in the number of people who are eligible. Who's in this category? Who's the beneficiary of the Medicaid program? The blue are the children. They're the biggest beneficiaries. The green are their parents, mostly moms. The red is the disabled adults, and the one at the top are the seniors. So that would be nursing homes. The green are the moms. The red are disabled adults, kids on the blue. Next chart shows you, though, where's the money going? The kids are not as expensive as their numbers. You see, on the right, you're talking about the cost. And the moms are the green. The red are the adults with disabilities. That's a huge expense. Think about somebody who gets in a motorcycle crash without a helmet and they're disabled for life. That's that crowd. The seniors, small number, big cost. Those would tend to be people in long-term care facilities. So think of your impoverished mom who transferred all of her money to her kids and now is eligible for Medicaid and is in a nursing home in the suburbs. That's what I think. That's the group. Okay, who gets the money? Who are the recipients of the money? Hospitals. What's our total here? I don't know what our total is up here, but there's individual numbers. So that's $3.5 billion.
Yep.
In hospitals. The doctors, practitioners, $1.3 billion. The long-term care facilities, those are the nursing homes, almost $2 billion. I think that's only about 65,000 people. Drugs, so the cost of the drugs, almost $2 billion. And you see HMOs are very small. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about where this money is going. So when we talk about cutting Medicaid by $2.7 billion, those are the folks that would be affected by it. This just shows you that, really what this shows you is that in fiscal year 9, 10, and 11, we got extra money from the feds. So we usually get a 50-50 match, and you see in 9, 10, 11, we got more money. We got 61%, 61%, and 57%. That's from the feds. Now it's going back down for fiscal year 12 to 50%. Fiscal year 13 is not on the chart. That's the one we're working on right now. Okay, now I want to talk about the tax increase. This was not easy to pass a tax increase, but we obviously felt compelled to do it because we really had our fiscal health had been ignored. So the government itself is a drag on the economy, not paying your bills in a deadbeat state. So we think we did what we had to do. So we raised the personal rate from 3% to 5%. So if you're a Democrat, that's a 2 percentage point increase. If you're a Republican, it's a 67% increase. And both of those are true. So, if you're a Republican or a newspaper report, it's a 67% increase. It's actually 66 and 2/3, but we'll give it to you. You're round up, right? The corporations went from 4.8 to 7. Okay? Corporations went from 4.8 to 7. Now let's see the next chart. You see over there it says corporate income tax rate, 7%, not 9.5. If anybody says it's 9.5, they're not telling the truth.
Really?
Okay? Yeah. It's 7%. That's the corporate income tax rate. We have a 2.5% personal property replacement tax, which we've had since 1979. The 1970 Constitution said we had to pass a change, a replacement tax, so we got rid of the personal property tax, and we passed a replacement tax. They call it a replacement tax because we ended the personal property tax. Okay? So you can't, apples to apples, just add on an extra 2.5% to our corporate tax. It's disingenuous. It's a lie if you know you're doing it. Okay? So if you're comparing our rates to these other states, we have a 7% tax. Most of the other states have a personal property tax. I think I'm making my point, right? I've said it about 3 or 4 times. I can tell from the look on the faces of some people, they don't want to believe that. They wanted to say we had 9.5% corporate tax. And he's telling me I can't say it. Okay, the second point here, this tax is temporary. It goes down to 3.75 in 2015. Okay? Now, have you ever watched Fox News, Mike Flannery? He gets all worked up, he goes, temporary? It's a temporary tax with quotes? Like, we know it's not really temporary. Well, the way this works is, the law says it goes down. If the law is not changed, it's temporary because it goes back down. Okay? We should look at the some of these other states and the history of our income tax. Governor Ogilvy, remember, the state income tax was created at a 2.5% level. Governor Thompson raised it to 3%. Then it went back down. That temporary tax went back down to 2.5. Then Governor Thompson said another temporary tax increase was necessary, and that was supposed to fall back 2.75. Then there was an election for governor. Hardigan and Edgar. Hardigan, the Democrat, said, let it go back down. Edgar, the Republican, said, no, we need to pass a law to keep it at that level. Hardigan lost the election. Hardigan won. Edgar won, and then we went back in and voted to raise the tax. Okay, so Governor Edgar actually had a tax increase as well to vote on it, and he signed it. Now Governor Quinn has the temporary tax. I emphasize this because it drives me crazy when people say it's not temporary. Okay? Now, next point would be looking at these other states.
Right.
So ours is flat. That was a deal that the Republicans wanted at the convention in 1970. Flat is good for folks that was the interest, the corporate interest, wanted it to be flat. Wisconsin, as you can see, has a higher tax rate than we do. The Indiana is 3.4. We had been lower than them, but in Indiana they have a 1% tax that each county has, so it's really 4.4. They're still a little bit lower than ours, but their corporate rate is 8.5. Ours is 7. Wisconsin's corporate is higher than ours. You can see Iowa. It's graduated, but and so is Missouri. But those two states, you get above 5% real quick. And same thing is true with Kentucky. Now, one other thing we should talk about. This, by the way, shows that. Wisconsin, anything over 10,000, you're at 6%. Iowa, anything over 13,000, you're higher than Illinois. Missouri, anything over 9,000, you're higher. Kentucky, anything over 5,000. And then Indiana, as I said, we have a 1% add-on. Okay, retirement income, we don't tax retirement income. We should probably start bragging about that. We're not going to change it. We should have everybody think about retirement in Illinois. We don't tax retirement income. Very few states don't tax retirement income. Now, I got to tell you, I got this postcard in the mail from the Illinois Policy Institute. Is there anybody here from the Illinois Policy Institute? Tom? No. So I guess I should say that I got a call from Mr. Tillman from the Policy Institute. And I called him. He sent me a letter saying we passed the highest income tax in the history of the state of Illinois. And I called him and I said, well, wait a minute. Ogilvy passed one. It was 2.5%. Ours is only 2%. He said, no, that's not true. Ours is the highest tax increase in the history of the state of Illinois. I said, well, what about Ogilvy? He said, well, that wasn't the tax increase. That was the establishment of the tax. Ours are the increases. So for those people who you guys are not laughing, this is supposed to be funny. People in 1969 were paying 0, then they were paying 2.5%. That wasn't an increase, according to Mr. Tillman, okay? So do not say our corporate tax rate is anything more than 7%. Do not say our income tax was the highest in the history of the state of Illinois, okay? I got this postcard from Governor Walker. And this is the Illinois Policy Institute is having him speak in Chicago on Friday. And it says, Illinois, Wisconsin both faced severe budget crises, but the path they took to respond could not be more different. For Illinois, Governor Quinn chose the path of tax hikes, the highest in state history. And see, he didn't listen to me. And it has led to disaster. Unemployment is up. Businesses and taxpayers have left the state. Our deficit is $8.5 billion and growing. State workers didn't receive pay raises they were promised. And the list goes on. That's what that postcard said. So it's just not true, right? Most of the stuff in there is not true. So it's pretty funny. We raised taxes, Wisconsin didn't. They were already higher than us, and they're still higher than us. What Governor Walker should do is go back to Wisconsin and lower his taxes to our levels and eliminate this income tax on retirement income of the seniors that he's sticking to. Now, as far as him worrying about us not paying our pay raises to the state workers, that's pretty ironic, but it's true. We passed a budget that didn't fund the raises, and they didn't get it. They're trying to sue us to try to get it. It's really, the unemployment rate is not as important as how many jobs you've created. So in Illinois, we've created many more jobs than Wisconsin has. So it is, once again, pretty ironic that this guy is here. Now, as far as our solutions to the problems, the pensions, we were literally downstairs, and they might still be there, working with folks that are on a pension working group that the governor has put together. We really think that we can come together in good faith, and we're doing it by, again, talking and trying to get an agreement. I think it's going to work. We're overworking on the budget, where Medicaid is an effort to cut Medicaid in dramatic cuts. And it's not going to be easy, but we have to do it because we have to have a balanced budget. We have been working with Republicans and Democrats alike. I would say that over in the House, last year, they had great cooperation between the House and both Democrats and Republicans. They got a budget, which we adopted in the Senate. We're hoping this year that we'll get cooperation from the Senate Republicans to see if we can reach an agreement for the first time, really, because we've not had a bipartisan budget in the Senate voted on in the last 3 years. I appreciate your attention. Thank you.